Zoom. Okay, recording.
Beautiful, thank you. Welcome everyone. This is Pivot with Compassion Circles. My name is Laurel Donelan. I'm the founder and CEO of Compassionate Leaders Circle, and I'm here with my dear friend and faculty member, Karen Radke. Karen, would you like to introduce yourself and where you are today?
Sure, thank you. Hello everyone. I'm Karen Radke. I'm in Chicago with my two teenage children and husband. I do leadership, team, and culture coaching, as well as Compassionate Leaders Circle work. Thank you for having this opportunity to be with you today.
I can't imagine anyone I'd rather have this conversation with. I'm really excited. And I'm in Sag Harbor, New York, with my roommate and my community social distancing. And I feel so lucky that I'm in the country where I can, see nature in 5 minutes, be at a beach. I'm very, very blessed. Our vision at Compassionate Leaders Circle is that we see a compassionate world where we all are valued for our humanity, our dreams, and our ingenuity. We're working together to build a more compassionate world, but I think it starts with seeing the compassion that is, and I think right now is a great time to shine a light on compassionate leaders and seeing the compassionate leadership that is. We'll be focusing on compassionate leadership today. We're working through a lot of different topics each week. This quote here comes from, I have the great honor of covering compassionate leadership for Forbes, and this quote comes from the very first article I wrote 14 months ago. Compassionate leaders acknowledge our universal interconnectedness and use their influence to make a positive impact on others and the planet. It's really important for us, for our morale and for our hope and for our survival, to shine a light on compassionate leaders and compassionate leadership. This morning, I was in a prayer circle with people that have been taught by Lakota chiefs how to pray in sweat lodges and ceremonies. And I'm thinking today about the gratitude I have for the leaders of the Lakota people who in the 80s decided to share their ceremonies and the way they pray with lots and lots of people outside of their race. And they did that with deliberation and thoughtfulness, thinking and believing that if they shared their mysterious, beautiful rituals with more people, it would heal the races. So I'm thinking about them as compassionate leaders and visionaries. I think what I'd like everyone to think about today in our opening circle is who is a leader or who is a group of leaders that you would like to acknowledge as being compassionate. It might be something you've seen this week. It might be somebody you already know that you think of as a compassionate leader that you want to praise today. But I think these are the type of leaders that amplify hope, and we need a lot of hope right now. So I thought it might be nice for all of us to share about a leader or group of leaders that we believe are compassionate. And Karen, I'll let you share something if you have something in mind, or maybe read something from one of our participants.
Sure, I can start. Of course, a lot of people are acknowledging the healthcare community, and today being April 1st, there's a movement to light a candle, maybe one of those nice wireless candles, but to put in your window or near your window in honor of healthcare providers. I'm just really aware of how we're here. Many of us are home sheltering in place, and they are out working many hours to save, to keep us safe and to save lives. And a lot of my clients are doctors and surgeons. It's very interesting. They they don't see themselves on the front line unless they are actually in the intensive care in the emergency room. But many of them are asked if they're willing to convert the work that they normally do to that work and step in to something that's outside of their comfort zone. And just the generosity of spirit and the courage. I'm just in awe of them. So thanks for that. Maybe from some of the people online, maybe Shamus, you wanted to say, I wanted to praise the workers who are running the buses and subways, praise the cleaners who are keeping the facilities clean, praise all the people preparing food for others, the people behind the people that we talk about more, like that are more visible.
Nice.
Anyone else want to share? Just, you can type it right into
Yeah,
the
type
chat.
it right into the chat if you're ready to share that. That would be great. And Karen will be sharing things along the way that you have. Those are all great examples. And in New York City at 7 p.m., there's 2 minutes of clapping or yelling or noise making for the care workers, which I think is so fabulous. Brings a smile to my face. I also think anything that is praising our workers and leaders, the people that are saving lives, is so beautiful. So our purpose today in our circle today is to continue to create an authentically connected community. We're here every day through the month of April with my faculty, and in these circles we want to help heal, amplify compassion, help everyone ground themselves in purpose. We are in this together, so welcome to the circle. Our agenda today is to talk about compassion and how you might take on some new practices or amplify old practices that work for you around compassion. We always do a contemplative practice to focus our minds and hearts and slow down a bit. We'll share some curriculum and some exercises around our leadership method today, share some resources. We will have Q&A at the end if you don't get your question answered throughout. Then we'll have you do a weekly and daily commitment, and we'll close with first 3 breaths and a closing circle. We are recording this right now for the people that can't attend live so that we can broadcast it later. At the very end of this session, we will close the audio in case you want to unmute yourself and chat with Karen and I directly, or if you just want to chat through the chat, we will have time for that. At the foundation of everything we do at Compassionate Leaders Circle is compassion. We help people pivot with purpose in their careers and lives. We help people strengthen their leadership skills, and we also have our own coach methodology. But at the foundation of all of that is compassion. Compassion fuels positive change. I'm going to share some stats around that. It is an antidote for fear, and it will boost your immune system. So practicing self-compassion and compassion of others can actually be good for your health. When we think about compassion and compassionate practices and action, compassion and action, we think about 3 different types of compassion. So there's compassion for yourself. All you need for that is yourself. So thinking about being kind to yourself, think about being mentally kind to yourself, praising yourself, all those things relate to self-compassion. Being vulnerable to others is really the bridge to being compassion for others, because if you're not willing to be vulnerable and ask for help or share that you're scared, it's hard, or share that you might have symptoms with your doctor, it's hard to have a compassionate community or compassionate world if we're not vulnerable. I think that in addition, and I apologize for the typo here, compassion for others is where we can take our love and our light and our service to other people. So in thinking about these three things, self-compassion, vulnerability to others, and compassion for others, think about the following week, like the next 7 days, and I'd like you to share which one of these you need to dial up. Which is your opportunity? Maybe your opportunity is to lean into what is natural for you. Maybe your opportunity this week is to take on some new behaviors. So I've been sharing this week that I am blessed with a whole bunch of people that want to help me on my team, and we're bringing in interns and we're bringing in volunteers. So my opportunity is to be vulnerable to others and ask for more help than I'm comfortable with. So if you're participating live, please type in what your opportunity is for the week, and Karen, I'll have you share yourself and anything that you might have from the participants.
Yeah, I was thinking vulnerability as well as my kind of area to dial up, and that's, because when you're in a sort of service profession, you really are focused on other people, and then you think you have to put on a positive face during this time, but in fact you're more accessible the more willing you are to tell on yourself and be vulnerable. It has people be able to get in and connect with you quicker at a heart level, and it just moves the relationship into trust so much faster. So that's the one I'm working on dialing up.
Thank you. And I think
in the chat, I'm seeing people want to dial up self-compassion because the focus is usually on others. So more of that, directing that compassion. We can be so hard on ourselves. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, fantastic. Continuing our compassion here, I wrote a piece in Forbes a while back about the differences between sympathy, empathy, and compassion. I was at a conference, I think a year ago, maybe longer, and a professor from Cornell said, "What is the difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion?" I said, "That's a good question. I'll come back to you." So the definitions, the working definitions that we use for sympathy is pity or sorrow for another's misfortune. And these are all positive things. None of these things are bad at all. Empathy, which has been a trend in the adult development world and professional development world, also really important, is the ability to understand and actually share others' feelings. As coaches, we try to use that as much as we can. Compassion is the consciousness of others' distresses and the desire to prevent or alleviate it, or alleviate them. And I think as leaders, as influencers, it's also important to work on the prevention side as well as the alleviating them when we're in distress. So preventing distress can also be really compassionate. I know many leaders that I'm talking to right now are under a lot of stress, and I want you to be self-compassionate, but I think slowing down and understanding the ripple effects you have on the people you influence and trying to prevent panic and prevent problems is also really important. Karen, anything you want to add to this or questions that you might have here?
Let's see. No questions so far, and feel free to include those as we go along in the chat. Just invite you to do that as you like. For me, for compassion, it feels like most people have a compassion expansion. I do anyway, when I've gone through something difficult myself, like when my dad passed away, or years ago when I went through a divorce. It had this ability to have me be more attuned to other people's pain. So I feel like we're having a collective moment of compassion expansion now, as people are all, it's not theoretical anymore. We are all in this, and experiencing this difficulty. And I just feel like if we're open to it, it can be a real time of compassion expansion if we let it in. And it feels like the way through this is to focus, try to be of service in whatever way we can, given our current circumstance.
I love that compassion expansion. Thank you so much. So in some ways, we can also think about this as a continuum, and the research will back us up here, but sympathy is often about thoughts, like thinking about someone, even if you're at a funeral and you're having sympathy for someone you don't know, it can be it can be beautiful, and it also can just be about your mind more than your feelings if you don't know that person. Empathy is more about an embodied experience of thoughts and feelings. Compassion is about thoughts, feelings, and action. So actually taking action around alleviating or preventing suffering. That is related to, I say the scientists have caught up with the sages, because we know most main religions and spiritual teachers have been talking about compassion for thousands and thousands of years. And in the last 15 years, there's a body of research that actually prove that compassion and creating compassionate families and communities and workplaces can be very, very productive. So there's lots of research. I'm going to be posting this deck and this recording on our blog, so you can refer to this later. One of the more interesting things for me is while compassion can lead to fatigue, while empathy can lead to fatigue, compassion can increase our resilience and improve our approach to stressful situations. And I've been playing with this in my own coaching practice that, for instance, giving suggestions when someone is under stress can be empathetic, but actually helping someone find the resources they need when they're in crisis can actually help me as a service provider as much as it can help them. So lots of information and stats around compassion. Anything you want to add here, Karen?
No, just this idea of helping people coach themselves, like in the moment. And how do you know when you're hitting that fatigue point? Like what triggers do you have for yourself that you might need to spend more time on self-compassion? Just what tells you that it's too much, and then listen to yourself. So that's but the more we can coach ourselves, the better right now.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I know for me, being short with people is a sign that I'm not taking care of myself. So I usually have to pause, make an apology, and then figure out how to get more rest or downtime. We'll do a short contemplative practice here. So whenever we do programs at Compassionate Leaders Circle, we try to combine coaching with curriculum and contemplative practice. So if you're willing and in a place where you can do this, take your glasses off, close your eyes, find your seat, find your spine, find your head, find your hands, find your feet, and then just breathe. So I'd like you to breathe in compassion and breathe everything else out. Breathing in the idea of compassion and breathing everything else out. And if you can, in your mind's eye, allow that breath and that idea of compassion to take on a color, if it's easy for you. You can breathe in, imagine yourself breathing in that color of compassion and letting it land in your heart. In a very gentle way, I'd like you to breathe and send compassion to yourself, to your mind, to your heart, to your soul, to your body, sending compassion to yourself. And then allowing yourself to have someone you love come to mind. It might be a client, a family member, a friend that needs extra compassion today. And if you can, breathe that compassion to them, connect to them, and send them compassion. Breathing in compassion and breathing everything else out. I'd like you to connect to your community, and your community might include your family, your workplace, the organizations that you might volunteer for. Perhaps you have a church or a synagogue that you're a member of, other professional organizations. So connecting to compassion and sending compassion out to your community. And then connecting to compassion and sending out compassion to your nation, to your country. And then sending compassion out to the world, to all the global citizens, all the beings on the planet. And then you can just come back to yourself and your heart and come back to the room, the virtual room. In this series that we're running through April 30th, we will balance activities like we just did with some curriculum. This is our leadership model. Our intention with our leadership model is to build more capacity for compassionate leadership. All of our change models honor the past, the present, and the future. And I just wanted to point this out to you. We'll be sharing more detail about this as we go forward. But the past is about being connected to yourself, understanding those things perhaps right now that give you strength and reconnecting to those things. I love that Karen reminded us that there's compassion, expansion when we go through something tragic and difficult. I think the lessons from those things in our past can really be helpful right now. The present and being yourself is about taking care of yourself, going deeper with your relationships, understanding how to develop an abundant family or organization or community, and then unleashing your passions. So we'll talk about all these things as we go forward. And every time we come together, we'll also help you create a commitment plan from the learning we have so that you can bring the learning forward into your day and into your week. One of the tenets at Compassionate Leader Circle is that everyone is a leader. I believe that we are living in a world that's moving away from hierarchy and patriarchy and moving into a new world of circle leadership. I like to think of the world being flat because we have access to so many things, and that leadership needs to become more round. If you don't believe you're a leader, let me ask you some questions about that, because leadership is the simplest definition I know about leadership, and I'm excited to get Karen's weighing in on this too, is just people that, leaders influence in others, right? And we're living in a world where whether you're in a family or on a social media platform, you're influencing others. It might be your friends, it might be your family, it might be an organization. So if you influence people, which is one of our questions here on this leadership profile, you are a leader. I think leaders, people who influence each other, have to think about, where do you get your information? We've been talking a lot this last week about dialing down the news and dialing up things that are positive. I think, you know, where you get your information, whether it's from other people, from professors, from the news, from social media, I think it's really important to pause and think about where you get information. But if you have access to information, you are a leader. And what impact are you making? Are you making an impact? I mean, even if you have one sibling that you're interacting with, you're making an impact on that person. And I think in times of crisis, our impact is amplified. So if you are impacting anyone, if it's one person or 10 or 10,000, you are a leader. And you have access to inspiration, right? So leaders need to be visionary and inspiring if you're going to be a compassionate leader. So if you have access to inspiration, that might be podcasts, that might be a person that you admire, a mentor, that might be scripture for some people, or religious texts. So I'd like to pause with, how do you get inspired? And I'd like everyone to think about how you are being inspired right now. What are the things that lighten your heart? One of our advisors talk about compassion being the heart's response to suffering, which I really love. And so what is inspiring you right now? And you can share that through the chat if you're up to that, or you can just, you know, remind yourself of those things and bring those into your heart. But Karen, what's inspiring you now?
Well, just how these times cause a lot of people to get very creative, because when we don't have what we normally do, then you know, you have to get more resourceful and more creative about it. So just how people are coming up with different ways to do things, you know, just like my kids are, my teenage twins are, you know, kind of online learning, and how the different teachers are working through that, how parents are trying to help their kids through that process, and how different students are going about it. I mean, it's very inspiring just to see, you know, what might come out of this. So people actually have, there's a need for it, there's a purpose, a larger purpose that then causes people to get, you know, kind of create something new. From the chat, I'm seeing that, you know, all people creating and sharing free content to help everyone navigate through this time. That's inspiring to some of our viewers. From virtual DJ and dance parties to folks doing fitness classes to programs like this, you know, just how generous people are being is very inspiring. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Great, great. So in our research and in our practice over the last 22 years, we have identified 7 core attributes of compassionate leaders. We're going to do an exercise with these now. So as I go through these, I want you to think about which attribute is your natural strength and which attribute is an opportunity for growth. So which one might be the hardest to practice and which one might be the easiest is another way to think about that. So the first core attribute is compassionate, and we've talked a lot about that today, using influence to prevent and alleviate the suffering of others, putting that into practice. confident. So I have a colleague named Uvini Lubecki who has a beautiful organization called Leading Through Connection. She's my podcast partner, and she's taught me that compassion can be fierce and it can be soft. So confident, believing in their visions and themselves. So compassionate leaders are confident. And confidence also can create calm in the people that you influence. Collaborative, as a compassionate leader, you can empower your stakeholders to leverage their strength and be leaders and practice one of our tenets, which is everyone is a leader in the circle. Contemplative, take time to pause and deeply reflect, emerging wiser and more self-compassionate. Creating space right now, I think, is really important. I think about these care workers and the hours that they're working and the decisions, the life and death decisions they have to make all day. And I hope they can find a little pause in there somehow. Civil, demonstrate respect when confronted with differing points of view and other challenges. I would say that that's my biggest opportunity, especially around politics. But I think that as we come together as a country and rely on our, government leaders, it's so important to do that and model that and encourage that. Curious, learn and listen proactively. I appreciate so much, Karen, about you bringing up, innovation and imagination. We wouldn't be doing these sessions every day through the month of April 30th if I didn't listen to my colleagues, including Shamus, who is our Director of Compassion, and Valeria, who is a new faculty member, because they really created that idea, and that and I had to follow them. So being curious, and also as a leader, knowing that you don't have all the answers is important. Courageous, advocate strongly for themselves, their values, and their stakeholders. So as you look at this, again, think about the attribute that is your natural strength, and think about the attribute that could be a opportunity for building. So write those things down for yourself, and if you want to share those in the chat, that would be great. Another way to look at this model is the yellow parts of the model are really about things that you need to do with other people. The blue parts of the model are things that are more internal, that you have to develop internally. So just another way to look at things. So I already shared that civil is my opportunity, and I would say compassionate is my natural strength today, and that this will change over time as well. It's a good thing to check in on every once in a while. Karen, what would you like to say about this? You're muted.
My opportunity is confidence right now, just because with everything changing, it shifts your confidence in yourself and what you should be doing. Especially, small business owners are really, a lot of business, either they're not in business right now, or a lot of business has been put on hold. So that can create a lot of shakiness out there. For me, I know it does. So this continuing to believe in your commitments and your values and your vision is kind of all like summed up in confidence. So I could use a big hit of that. And for me, the one that's easy is being I'd say being collaborative is really quite easy. I'm always interested in what other people have to say and how we can build on other ideas. So that's a natural strength of mine, and just easy. And now it's just doing it in new ways for many of us. Let's see what I have here. So the strength is being curious right now, and the opportunity is being more, being contemplative. either making time, is that about, I'm not sure if it's making time for it, or having it become a habit, or learning new ways of doing it. Could be all of it. More time for it, some are saying yes. Yeah, that's a very good, like where do you put it in, at the beginning of your day or a couple times a day to like make time for it, but how do you start getting that to be a habit?
Yeah, I will put a plug in for trying different things, because there's a lot going on right now. And my test is, do I feel more peaceful at the end of what I just tried, or more agitated? And agitation can be good too, but it's only contemplative if I feel more peaceful and more hopeful at the end of the experiments, because I've been going to different churches online and different prayer groups and support groups, and some annoy me more than they are bringing me peace.
Yeah, that's true. And one thing one of our listeners is sharing is that the usual way, maybe you had a contemplative process before and maybe you didn't call it that, but some way to center yourself or focus yourself for the day or get yourself quiet, or it could have been at the end of the day, appreciation, gratitude. So, but what the person is sharing is that the way that I used to do it is now insufficient, because there's more agitation. We need more of that quieting, more of that returning to peace. And so we might have to step up what we were doing, because it's not enough now.
Yeah, and I think widening the net about what is contemplative, because what I've learned from my clients over the last 22 years is what's contemplative for me doesn't mean it's contemplative for you, right? So I've had clients who drive down country roads and that's their contemplative practice, or sit at the ocean, or for me surfing would not be a contemplative practice, but I took one surfing lesson and it almost it scared me. So but for other people surfing is very contemplative, right? Walking, it could be cooking, it could be for one person, being with small children can be agitating. For another person, it can be comforting. I'm there, 5 to 12-year-olds are kind of my tribe. So I always, I'm not a mom. So they just, whatever they do makes me laugh and is hilarious. And for other people, that can be agitating. So you have to find new ways of being contemplative. That's so beautiful. Anything else here, Karen?
Just nature seems to also be, that's coming up for me, or what you said. A lot of people are finding more comfort in nature. Even though, in Chicago right now, our mayor and governor have closed down the lakefront because too many people were congregating and it was getting like dangerous for people to, pass the virus. And so, but the idea of somehow getting outside every day, we sort of make our 15-year-old daughter do this, and she was really resistant at first. It's cold out there, it's still winter. We're like, get outside, get some fresh air, get a little bit of exercise, and it does renew your spirit.
Yeah.
Most people, some kind of outdoor is really useful.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. We're going to shift now into some resources for you all to be contemplative and be in community. We are going to be here again through April 30th. These sessions that will be free every day. Karen and I will be here every morning on Wednesdays to talk about compassionate leadership. I have another colleague with me in the evening. So we're going to do 2 compassionate leadership sessions on Wednesdays to cover all of our time zones. Then we start with courage and faith again tomorrow, awareness and truth, then balance and love, authenticity and abundance, creativity and integrity, and then vision and commitment, and back to compassionate leadership. So Every session will be different, even if the topic is the same. And I'm doing this with my incredible team who are very, very pro and have a lot of wisdom to bring to you. So please join us. You can sign up once and drop in whenever you can, or you can come every day. And please share this with your friends and family. We have a sign up on our website. We are developing some resources. My wonderful team, Shamus and her colleague Jenny, are putting together resources related to this crisis. They'll be featured on our website and we'll add to them. I got a couple of new ones yesterday. Those of you that have small businesses or solopreneurs, there is a fund available through the Small Business Administration. You can go to the Small Business Administration and click on the disaster fund and apply for a $10,000 grant. You could do that in about 30 minutes. I highly recommend doing that to support you and your families. So we'll be sharing things like that as things come up. Karen's mentioned there's a lot of learning opportunities out there. On our About page, we also have a lot of resources. We provide a 30-minute free coaching session for anyone that needs support. On our posts and podcast page, there's our Forbes posts, and there'll be later today a post with this deck and this recording. We also launched a new podcast a couple of weeks ago, a spiritual podcast called The Buddhist and the Pagan, if you're interested in that. Any resources that you want to share, Karen? Okay. And those of you that need support, you can contact Shamus, who I've promoted here on this slide, but she's actually Director of Compassion. I have a couple of mistakes on my slides. I'm the founder and CEO. Shamus is the Director of Compassion, and that's her proper email, shamus@compassionateleadercircle.com.
Shamus is enjoying it.
She got promoted last week and this week. She gets a promotion every week. Soon she'll be head goddess of the universe. Any questions or comments or insights from today's session that you might want to share here? We'll keep rolling. So I have two slides about commitments, and when at Compassionate Leaders Circle, we don't use the word goal. We use the word commitment because we want everyone to pause and think about activities that are connected to your heart. So a commitment here is an activity that's connected not only to your head, but to your heart. So based on what we've talked today about, what is one commitment you can make in the next week to be a more compassionate leader? And if you want to just write that down for yourself, I'm going to ask you in a minute if you want to share that in the closing circle, but you can write that down for yourself. Ponder that. What's one thing you can do that, might be more compassionate to yourself, or more vulnerable, or more of service to others? Maybe you identified an attribute that you want to work on. So think about what you want to do for the week, one thing, and then we'll bring that back to the day. So what's one simple commitment you can complete in the next 24 hours? So I've been talking a lot about yoga. I'm very pleased that yesterday I did two things for my yoga practice. I signed up for Yoga International. I set up my niece on Zoom because my 10-year-old niece loves to do yoga with me. So we're going to run classes through Zoom from Yoga International, and we're going to do 30 minutes of yoga every other day. So I have a little yoga buddy. And so if you want to share one thing that you can complete in the next 24 hours, that can also include reaching out to us or spending another session with us. About that for a moment. Write that down for yourself. And we're going to do 3 breaths, and then we're going to do our closing circle. So if you can all find your seat again and close your eyes and find your spine and find your heart. Take 3 deep, long breaths. Close our circle by everyone sharing through the chat, if you can, one thing that you want to say to feel complete today. So it might be an insight you had about the material Karen and I presented. It might be a commitment you want to share with the group to keep yourself accountable. It can be a question. My sharing today is a reminder to myself to really open up my heart and my soul and my prayers to the leaders that are doing the best they can, looking for appreciation rather than looking for criticism of their leaders.
So what I'm hearing from people is be kind to myself. This is a commitment. Be kind to myself for the next 24 hours and for the week. I have a tendency to do too much, so I want to slow down. Reach out to one friend today via phone. So those are some commitments. Oh, drop all judgment. That's good. Mine is be responsible for the energy I'm bringing into the room. Just be aware of what kind of energy I'm bringing in moment by moment and see what's needed and be the person to bring that in if I can.
Beautiful. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us today. We are going to end the recording now, and we